Let's see how well it works. Like maybe right here. Can people hear me? I don't hear any difference. I see the green thing. Volume, it's definitely on. It needs to be closer. Hello? Can people hear me?
Only when you do that. If you want to talk like this, that'll work. And it doesn't pick up.
Can you hear me now? I'll just hold it.
No, it's Alexa.
I could use this. That would be weird. Tight? That's off. Does this work? It doesn't work either. Let's get it close to me. Can people hear this? It's not really loud enough, is it? Let's get this up here. Can you hear now? How about in the back? Can you hear me? Pretty much?
Yes. Quiet, but I can hear you.
All right. All right. I think we're all here. So I would like to thank Callie for offering me this opportunity. This is my very first CALIcon, and I think this is the first time I've talked about subjects like this, which I have written about for a few years, where I felt like I really had the perfect audience. I'm pretty sure I don't have to say that I'm a nerd. I think I'm with my people. So I'm going to talk about a very specific part of the legal research process. And in keeping with the theme of this conference about the rhythm of law, so I think most of us who do research would be okay with describing it as something that has rhythm. We start, we get to the next part, we learn something, we go back, we iterate, there's a sort of dance to it, and it's a process that we're all very familiar with. I'm going to narrow that process and just look at one specific part of the research process that I could make hold still long enough to actually make some conclusions about what was happening. And the part that I'm going to focus on really is searching for case law. And I know that might not be the way most people start, but we certainly know it's the way that people do use. I mean, according to West, for example, that's the first place people go, whether we want them to or not. But that allowed me to sort of focus in one area. And I focused on focused on keyword searching, because that's also something that is the most natural way for our students to search. And this is what they think about it. So, except we don't think about it this way, but they do, right? So there's a search engine, there's a box, you put some terms in, there's something going on in the background, and you get your results, and you're pretty happy with them, right? You think your results are pretty relevant. And all of our there's been a number of studies that have said, you know, students really are satisfied with their results. They think they've found what it is they need, even when they just go on Google. So this is a way of thinking about it that will challenge our students, and even, I think, ourselves, to think about legal research in online databases. So this is a quote from a book on algorithms. An algorithm must be seen to be believed. And we don't see them, right? Somebody else sees them. So when we're searching online, what we know is that an algorithm is returning results to us. And as a Westlaw engineer once wrote me, I thought, sort of snarkily, but I think actually honestly, all of our algorithms are created by humans. And those humans made choices about how the algorithm would work that have implications for the results that we get back from our searches. And those choices are the biases and assumptions that are built into systems. I'm not using bias here in the pejorative sense. I'm using it in the computer language sense. A bias is a preference in a computer system. So it's a kind of difficult word for lawyers to get their minds around, but it's a technical term, right? So this is how it plays out in terms of setting up algorithms to work. So if you put a keyword search in with 5 terms, and only 4 of the terms appear in the document that's being looked at by the algorithm, what's it going to do with it? A strict algorithm will toss that result out. An algorithm can be adjusted to allow cases in that only have 4 of your terms, which could be good or bad, depending, right? But it's a choice that's been already made for you. The algorithm is set to predetermine how close words have to be to each other in order to turn up in the results. That's proximity. And the program teams decides which terms are automatically stemmed and which are not. Only that team knows if existing legal phrases are added to the search engine without user input. And the researcher doesn't have access to the list of synonyms that are added automatically to the search and which are not. So that's the search grammar. The team decides if and how network analysis or citation analysis is part of the algorithm, and how any internal classification systems and content analysis are used. Relevance ranking is one form of prioritizing results that we're all familiar with. And filtering is including or excluding information according to a set of rules. So those are the choices that are made. Once they've been made, the algorithm is not biased in the pejorative sense. It's just carrying out the instructions that the humans who created it have given it. So when we use these resources, we don't really know how that's affecting our search results or if it's affecting the search results, and it does. So legal database providers pretty much view their algorithms as trade secrets. They don't discuss how algorithms work except in the broadest possible senses. I think legal database providers could be much more transparent about the kinds of biases they have in their algorithms without compromising trade secrets. I don't think anyone, even in this room, is really interested in going out and reverse engineering what Lexis or Westlaw or Ravel or anyone else is doing. We just want to understand how we can.
I would do that.
You would do that? Well, don't worry. None of the things I'm asking them to do will actually allow you to do that. So there's general knowledge and specific knowledge, right? So we want, I think, more general knowledge about what's being privileged in databases and how that makes a difference to the kind of searching. That'll help researchers be better crafters of searches. They will better understand the kind of results that they're getting and better at mining the very rich legal resources that there are in these databases. And librarians, for those of you who teach, they'll be better teachers of legal research because they will understand some of the biases and problems that there are with the results that you get in databases. This is called algorithmic accountability, and it's a hot topic outside the legal world with algorithms that make decisions that actually have legal effects on people. You do or you do not get insurance because an algorithm is making decisions about you. I think there's definitely room for this in the legal arena. So we need a frank discussion with our database providers about algorithmic accountability, what it means to search in their databases. And here's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Probably you can't read that in the back of the room, but this is from Summon, which is a discovery layer. And this is their discussion of what it is they're doing in the background that you may not know about. And I'll skip the intro here, but the search they're talking about is paint drying time, glass or wood, in parens. And what they're telling you is this Boolean query will provide a small relevancy boost for documents containing the words paint, drying, and time in close proximity to each other, which is a relevancy enhancement that did not previously apply to Boolean searching. So now you know something about how to search in this database. You can, and this is much more like something that a student researcher, a novice researcher would do, right? They wouldn't have every proximity connector in there. So that's valuable. Now, unfortunately, this information is in Summons' administrative module, which you can only get in if you have an administrator's password. So the only reason I saw it is that I asked my administrator to send it to me. Nevertheless, this information exists. I don't think it's giving away a trade secret, right? And it's very helpful to know these kind of things to understand the search process. And you can ask. I mean, I've asked Lexis Advance for more information about why some of the things they say happens, and they have actually provided that information. So it isn't hopeless. We can get it. We just have to demand it. So to see where we wound up today, I'd like to go back a little bit in time to the beginning of online searching, which, believe it or not, was over half a century ago. And in the beginning, if you were in an online database, you could only use strict Boolean searching, and that is a human telling a machine exactly what to do. And we all know the problems with this kind of searching, right? If you left out a synonym or forgot a relevant concept, the computer is quite literal, and you don't get the results that you need. And full-text searching with keywords was offered pretty early on as an alternative to that. The response from librarians was, and in some ways continues to be, a concern that just free-floating in that sea of words, sort of unmoored from the classification systems, would somehow mean that researchers would not be able to find creative solutions to problems. They would miss analogies. They would be unmoored from the system. And I think that worry has literally been around since the very beginning of online databases. But Medlar's and Ohio Research Service introduced their first computer-based information retrieval system in 1964. And Mead Data Central Computer released the first iteration of Lexis in 1970. And I think that prediction has failed to come true over and over again, because we keep talking about it for the next generation of students. Well, that past generation of students sort of got it somehow. And I think the reason is that there always is structure in computer databases, whether we see it or not. Online legal databases are actually very structured. They're structured at a minimum by source, authority, jurisdiction, content type. Those divisions are there whether you see them or not, and also by the value-added indexing that's done by humans. And that applies across the board. To this day, Bloomberg BNA, Westlaw key numbers, Lexis's Shepherds, all boast of the help that they get from human indexing, the indexing that's in their online databases. And it goes way beyond that. What is Netflix's secret sauce for improving movie recommendations? Humans. Google engineers rely heavily on human searchers to find problems with their algorithms so they can tweak them. So when Westlaw and Lexis, when they first released that new Google-like box that made everyone worry more, they built a lot of that structure and classification into the post-search filtering. So you put your terms in the box, and then you get all your options, right, to filter that. And then they each spent the next years up till now and continuing into the foreseeable future allowing pre-search filtering to be more and more granular, adding word wheels and pre-search filters on the opening interface so that lawyers and students could get immediately to what they wanted. And lawyers apparently want detailed, multi-options, and visually packed interfaces. So does everyone know who Margaret Hagan is? Margaret Hagan is a lawyer who does literally like picture visualizations of the law. They're quite beautiful. She'll sit in a room or she'll look at a civil procedure book and she'll do a watercolor visualization of what the law looks like. And it's really fantastic. But she did a study where she found that, and I quote, lawyers want maximum overload of information in response to queries that they do. They want it listed out in detail with lots of information packed onto the page. They don't want white space. They want text covering as much of the screen as can fit. They want lots of controls and all kinds of filters and sorting mechanisms, even if that's bad design. And her article is called, Do Lawyers Want Bad Design? And the answer is yes. And that's where the classification comes back in. So what it means in terms of teaching sort of generally is that I don't really teach the difference between looking in books and looking in online for information. I try and teach my students to think about how much and what kind of human control they have over the search process, regardless of where they're searching. What's been done for them that they know about, what's been done for them that they don't know about. And for maximum human control, of course, we've been taught that Boolean is the answer because we're allegedly constructing the search parameters. I think at least it's fair to say for Lexis Advance and Westlaw, there is no true Boolean searching anymore. They are boosting their results with keywords that they're running through all of their content and classification systems. And that may be a good thing or not. I think, if I remember right, there was a time when you could actually do like, I want real Boolean searching, just don't help me, right? And I think that's gone. So there isn't really a pure human in control option for those things. But database providers will tell you, it may be buried in their information or it may be right in the front, like fast cases, that using Boolean searching will improve your results. So I show my students what Westlaw recommends to get the best results for defining a term. So in Westlaw, that's generally, right, this. Whoops. WP, right? So that's their least useful way to get good search results, because it only works if it's been very specifically defined as a term. This is what they recommend. Define, mean, interpret, explain, construe, constitute, typical, entail within 5 of your term. And I would like a show of hands for anybody who's seen a student do that. I mean, to be fair, if you call Westlaw and ask them for help, this is, in fact, the kind of search that they'll give you, right, with all of these, variables in it. And it says this search is usually the most effective in finding definitions and works in case law as well as secondary sources. So for searching with a little less human control. The other option, of course, is keyword searching or plain language searching, or as is often miscalled, natural language searching. Not that many people are using true natural language searching, which is linguistic and not term-related. And this kind of searching, of course, gives researchers the benefits of seeing the results of computer-determined relationships and the results of some sophisticated data mining. But it has the disadvantage of having a preset algorithm decide what the results should be in a way that is not transparent. And keyword searching often leads the researcher, not us, of course, to feel a little overly satisfied with those first results. So I always teach my students that the best thing to do is to do both. If you're in a system that's not going to charge you for doing both, you know, I call it the do Boolean with a keyword booster, right? Because you're going to get different stuff. I see somebody shaking their head back there. So how did I get to my study? Started with an invitation to speak at AALS in 2013, and I was asked to speak about algorithms, and honestly, I never really thought about them that much before. But at that time, we had a lot of new players or new interfaces, right? Westlaw Next and Lexis had recently released their interfaces. We had Fastcase and Google Scholar. And I wondered what a similar search in each of them might look like. I used a search where I'm pretty familiar with the main cases, so I could kind of do a quick, like, is this getting me good results? And my search was about the right to receive information. This is a fairly well-defined concept in constitutional law, although not a really major one. And for each database, I just searched across all federal cases and entered those words, because that is what we are invited to do in those search boxes. And this is the result. So these are the top 10 results from Lexis, Fastcase, Westlaw Next, and Google Scholar. So the gray cases are unique and relevant. The white cases are unique and are not relevant. And the orange cases appear in more than one database. Now, a couple of cases appeared in 3. One case showed up in 3. 4 of the 5 cases were in 2 databases, and none of them showed up in all 4 databases. So what this says to me is pretty interesting. I mean, these are the top 10 results, right? There's a lot of irrelevant results in the top 10, and not very much overlap in the results. There's a lot of unique cases, for better or worse. So every algorithm has something important to say, but not the same important things. So I did this in 2013. When I was getting ready to think about this next project, I thought, well, what's changed since then, right? So this is what's changed. So we have 2013 on top for reference, and this is the search in 2016. And I thought that a number of things have happened in between, right? People have changed their algorithms, and 3 years of new cases have been added to the database. So now Lexis only has 1 irrelevant result, and only 3 of the cases from 2013 show up again, and 7 are new, even though all 10 of the cases predate 2013. So this is just an absolute, complete change in the algorithm. Fastcase now has 2 relevant results, but all 10 results are new, and only 2 of those came after 2013. Westlaw has 3 new cases, and only 1 was decided after 2013. And all of Google's cases are the same, but they're in different order. So Google has messed with its algorithm the least. But what's really noteworthy about these 2 charts is how much of both of them is white and gray. Those are the unique results. So I thought, one day, it's like I woke up and had a bad idea. what would happen if I did this over a lot of searches, right? Would this still hold true, or is this just, these are one-offs, right? So I decided to do it over 50 cases, 50 searches in 6 databases. And these are the 6 I chose: CaseText, FastCase, Google Scholar, Laxus Advance, Ravel, and Westlaw. I didn't choose Bloomberg because at the time I was doing the study, they did not have a keyword searching option. So I couldn't compare their results. So I deliberately chose kind of medium good searches. These are searches that include legal concepts, that are multi-word, but that are not overwrought, and they're not like just taken from terms and connectors searches. They're sort of a free-form analysis of a legal construct. And here's a couple of them. So special relationship, constitutional duty, protect public from crime. Now, I think most lawyers would immediately recognize that there's a legal theory that search relates to, right? That you know, there needs to be a special relationship before there is any constitutional duty to protect a specific class of people from crime. And then that was done just in the Northern District of California. So here's job performance, racial classification, constitutional, administrative search, Fourth Amendment, warrant requirement. So they each use a fair number of words, and each of them has a legal phrase or concept or two in them that should be a signal to an algorithm that's in a legal research database. And I have to say, in all fairness, that I didn't use quotes because at the time that I created this study, you could only use quotes in Westlaw if you used advanced search. And that isn't something that most people go to, according to Westlaw, right? They've changed that since. So Laxus and Westlaw may have had a bit of a bias and edge in this study because I think their algorithms probably have more ability to recognize legal phrases without quotes. But that's a guess. I'm just saying there might be some bias here. So I ran each search in each of the 6 databases. So with 50 different search queries, that was 3,000 case results. And I did it in limited jurisdictional databases because it's a unique opportunity to truly compare results. If you look at reported cases in a specific jurisdiction, it should be the identical group of cases, right? I mean, they're reported cases from a specific jurisdiction. Now, it turns out that each of these legal databases started their coverage at a slightly different date. And so all of them have from 1933 forward. I didn't know that when I started the study, but when we analyzed the results, only 2 cases out of 3,000 predated 1933. So I think it's fair to say that was a negligible issue and that the buckets of information that people were searching in were really identical. So in each jurisdiction had to turn up at least 10 results for each of the searches. So we tossed some searches, we revised them, we changed jurisdictions, we got rid of a few searches that just didn't work in all 6, till we finally came up with 50 searches that would work across all these databases. And so the question is, do the results from my one-off search hold true when you multiply them by 50? I don't think computer scientists would be surprised that each algorithm solved the problem in a slightly different way, and neither would anyone if we thought hard about it. But the parameters are, we're using the same search terms, we're searching the same set of documents, and we're solving the same problem. And this is how different the results are. So 40% of the cases across all 6 databases are unique. That's a lot. That's really a lot. And another additional 25% of the cases beyond that are only found in 2 of the 6 databases. And it goes down from there. Only 15% on average are found in all 3, and only 7% are found in either 5 or 6 of the databases. So what it says to me is if you set 6 teams to solve the same problem, the results are a testament to the variability of human problem solving. Even when a lot of the bias we're talking about, not all of it, but a lot of it, is technical bias. It's choices about how terms, proximity, I mean, these are not ideological problems. Some things are ideological problems, but those are not. And since I did this and I've talked about it, a bunch of people have said, well, what about Westlaw and Lexis? Like, what if you just compare Lexis and Westlaw? Because that's what people mostly use. So I pulled that data out and ran it. And if you just look at the 2 of them, the percentage of cases they share is only 28%. That means that 72% of the cases that you get in your top 10 results are unique. They don't show up in the other searches. Now, this is not to say they won't show up somewhere that you couldn't do another search. That's the rhythm of legal research. I'm just focusing on this one, like what's in the top 10 results problem. So how relevant were those top 10 results, right? That's the other thing we want to know. And one of the assumptions of the study was that each database provider wants to get the best, the most relevant results to the searcher. That's how much of their promotional material defines good results. And unfortunately, what is meant by relevance is a highly contested matter, a topic of a huge literature, and it's especially difficult in the legal context because it's basically the role of lawyers in an adversary setting to contest relevance. So some studies have gotten around this by predetermining what's relevant, like making their own bucket of stuff, and I could not do that. I don't have the skill, and I probably don't have the time, even if I had the skill. So what I did is use what Stuart Sutton calls a mental model framework for relevance, where you posit a lawyer who, without special expertise, but a lawyer in a particular area, who's starting a case law search to see what the positive and negative parameters of that legal world are. And I can say, having been a trial lawyer for 17 years, this is a true construct. You do that. You look and see, like, you have your little ball of information and your legal problem, and you see, is this more like my client's facts or less like my client's facts? What are the good cases and the bad cases? And you take a first cut in your research for, is this even remotely possibly going to help me? You don't look at every case and say, yes, this is relevant, this is super helpful. You say, this looks like it might be helpful, either because it's directly on point or because there's some analogy thing going on there that you think might help you if you thought about it harder. But you're just making your first cut. And then each student was given that kind of background concept I talked about for each search. So if the search was special relationship, constitutional duty to protect public from crime, the student coder was told, you're looking for cases where, despite the fact that state officials normally have no constitutional duty to protect the public at large from crime, the duty is or is not imposed by virtue of a special relationship between state officials and a particular member or class of public. So you're looking for the factual contours of that special relationship. And that sets the stage for relevance. Is this liable to help me in any way? It's relevant. That's a very broad concept of relevance, and it brings the most cases into the relevant stack. So these are cases basically that might play some cognitive role in the structuring of a legal argument. And I did ask all of my coders to do the same 5 cases so I could make sure they were thinking the same way about what relevance meant, and they did fine. So the decision to limit the review to the top 10 results was based on a couple of factors, right? So one is just the absolute sheer number of cases that have to be reviewed. And 50 cases times 10 results times 6 databases, that's a lot. And it fits with the second factor, the primacy of the top 10 results in searchers' behaviors. We are habituated to look at the top results. Google's default is 10 results. And a lot of studies show that people kind of give up and do something else if they don't find what they want right away. And I think our intuition is that the best results should be the top results, right? I mean, that's just, if that's not true, we need to be told. This is what happened. So we have definite groupings here. These are in here alphabetically and not by percentage of results, but you have definitely got Lexis Advance and Westlaw having the most relevant results, with Lexis at 57% and Westlaw at 67%, and everyone else grouping around 40% relevancy, and a lot of these other databases that we're looking at are extremely new. I think that it's not a negative. 40% relevancy, I think, is not a terrible thing. So next the question is, so if that many are relevant, how many of those relevant results were unique to that database? What am I getting from searching in a database that I'm not getting from another search engine? And this is that result. Let's go here. So I don't know if you guys can see this in the back, but the blue bar, the dark blue bar, the short bars are the percentage that were both relevant and unique. So every case has about 40% unique cases. And again, there's a grouping. The 4 newer entries had about 11% of cases that were relevant and unique. And Lexis had about 20, and Westlaw had about 30. So what do you know so far? Well, we can see that the older and more established databases have an edge in turning cases that are relevant or relevant and unique. And I want you to notice that I'm not saying that the cases that are relevant are the best cases. They're not necessarily like if you're searching a concept, the 3 cases that dominate in the field are. I haven't made that determination. These are just cases that play a cognitive role in solving a legal problem. So I think some of the reasons why Westlaw and Lexis return more relevant results are they have a much larger base of user history to mine, of things that people have clicked on, connections between things. And so that's maybe not so surprising. And the second reason, I think, is that they have both got, regardless of your opinion about the classification systems, they have both got very detailed classification systems and a ton of secondary content to mine when they are boosting their results with their algorithms. But that leads to kind of 2 separate issues about uniqueness and point of view. So one issue is the kind we're used to dealing with always when we make decisions about acquiring treatises. If you have the budget, you don't want one authorial viewpoint in your library, right? Because it's just a point of view. It's not the law. So I think databases are actually like that. They have authorial viewpoints. They're not an author, but they are the result of mining the very, very different content that's in legal databases and coming up with results for you. So it's not surprising, perhaps, that Lexis Advance and Westlaw have these rich results. However, there's another kind of viewpoint discrimination, and that is that both Lexis and Westlaw's classification systems are very much based on the 19th century Langdellian view of the world. So what Westlaw is just upfront about that. That's what they say. It's based on key numbers, and that's their system. Now, when Lexis went and did its classification system, they didn't make that announcement. But I did a comparison, for example, of contracts as a classification in both systems. And although they're not identical in terms of the order they're laid out in, they're very firmly based on what should be a very familiar Langdellian view of the world, where the subject matter is broken down into similar patterns of formation, interpretation, performance, defenses, and breach. And we can all recognize that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's only one worldview. And I think that if you're looking for another worldview, that may be a very good reason to gravitate to a newer legal database that may offer an alternative view of reality. So the newer entrants, case text, Google Scholar, whatever you may think of it, Ravel and Fastcase, may be offering in their cases that are unique something that is outside the norm of the Langdellian view. So parentheticals in case text, for example, or citation networks in Ravel and Fastcase, or I don't know if this is actually going to happen, but the last time I talked to Ed Walters, he said that he was actually, they were experimenting with allowing researchers to change the weights of some of these levers in terms of proximity, terms, age, weight of the case, and how much, all of those things, to leave it up to the researcher to play with those levers. So that would be very interesting. So I think that just because the top 10 results aren't all relevant and in each of these databases is not to say that each of them is not offering something important to the discussion. There's a couple other small things the study showed. So this is the number of results each search returned. And we know from looking at this that Lexis's, that's the very tall one, returns by far the largest number of cases for any search. At the 50th percentile, Lexis is turning 1,000 cases per search, while Westlaw, Ravel, and CaseText are returning just over 100, and Google is about at 180, and for Fastcase is at 70. So that, again, is, do you want everything, or do you want more focused results? That's something that it's nice to know. And then I thought it might be interesting to know about the age of the cases in the database. And there's a little more variation here. So the orange block of cases are cases from 1998 to 2015. And the highest number of newer cases comes from Westlaw and Fastcase and CaseText, at an average of about 66% of their cases coming from that chunk. And Google Scholar definitely has the most older cases in its results. Nearly 20% of Google's cases are from 1921 to 1978. And according to Google's own information, they rely heavily on citation count to privilege results. And that would obviously give an advantage to older cases that is not counteracted by anything, which it clearly is in the rest of the databases. So that's kind of what this looks like, right? Most relevant cases, Lexis and Westlaw. Most relevant and unique cases, Westlaw, a little bit Lexis. Most results, definitely Lexis. The newest cases are CaseText, Fastcase, and Westlaw. And Google Scholar has the most older cases. So one thing this study illustrates in terms of teaching or thinking about algorithms is that since every algorithm and database interface, actual structure you're using, is, at the end of the day, a completely human construct, and since every search that we do is actually a completely human construct, I think we need to sort of reorient our students to think about the search process as a human interaction that's mediated by technology. And I think that that is not how we think in our daily lives about searching on Google. We think that technology is just doing this work, right? It's true enough. It's true in Google as well as in all these legal databases that it's a human construct and we're constructing the search, but we don't have that relationship, that understanding that we're actually working with human constructs when we search. And I think in legal research it's really important if we want to get back to that rhythm. So the takeaway for students is that every algorithm is very, very different, and every database has its own worldview, and that therefore redundancy in searching, and searching with multiple searches and multiple terms and attempts, and when possible, multiple databases, is going to be necessary to get good results. And I don't think that's so different, right? Redundancy has always been a hallmark of legal research, that you use more than one resource to get what you want. And I actually do, for teachers in the room who are interested, I have an assignment that I have my students do that lets them do one search in 3 databases, which is sort of manageable in a class hour. So they can see this in action and own it and be amazed by it, because they are. And I'll just leave them up here for people to come get when I'm done. So that is pretty much my presentation. I've got time for questions. Have I stunned you all with information? Yes.
So which database did you think was the best?
What do I think? So that, I think, is not a fair question. Because, so just to illustrate the complexity of this procedure, I didn't talk at all about the instructions in each of these databases for limiting your search to a single jurisdictional database, which turns out to be a very complicated thing to do. In Lexis, for example, it's really hard to do. In Google Scholar, it's remarkably simple. You open a page, it's got a huge list of all of the jurisdictions of all of the states and all of the federal courts, and you just check what you want. In Lexis, it's like 12 steps, right? So I asked them, like, why is it so hard? Like, that's something that people do. They're going to start. They don't want Alabama law. When
That's a usability issue versus the actual results you would get. If you just looked at the results, which results did you think? Outside the usability, which I understand.
So I'm going to punt again and say it depends on what your search is and what you're looking for, right? So if you just want to say which database gave you the most relevant results and the most relevant unique results, that would be Westlaw. But does that mean Westlaw is the best database? No. It has its own biases and problems, and clearly everyone else is giving you between 11 and 20% more different results that you didn't get. And this kind of goes back to the problem about taking out this one tiny part of the search process, right? Like, no one actually just stops with one search. Like, oh, I got my 10 results, and now I'm done, right? So you would look at your results. If they weren't very relevant, in some cases these searches were very unrelevant, you would change your search terms. You would look somewhere else. You would use, in fact, all of the things that database providers give you when you do a search in terms of pointing you to other resources and secondary sources or briefs or, you know, citation networks or parentheticals. I mean, there's just a whole list of things that databases give you once you do your search to try and help you, first of all, get to more information and then possibly get to information that might fix your search. In my experience, irrelevant results mean irrelevant secondary sources too, but that's my next project. So it's very context-based. I mean, if I were searching for relevant results about a legal topic that was new, I don't think Westlaw would be the first place to look, because their key number system breaks down on new concepts. They're really good on old concepts, and pulling all those things together. But new concepts, not so much. So I think it's totally context-based. What I would say is that because everybody's worldview is so different, the best thing is to have a variety of viewpoints. And we used to think about that in terms of sort of just we have a variety of treatises and secondary sources, and now that all of that has moved largely online, I think we need to think of it in terms of the databases that we expose our students to and the way we have them think about it. So that's not the answer you wanted. Hi.
I'm curious, you mentioned that you did not use advanced search in Westlaw and in Lexis. So why is that? I mean, does advanced search get you around algorithms? Or
No.
Not really?
So advanced search takes you to Boolean. Right. Now, Boolean in Westlaw happens to be also boosted with results, but it's not the same search. You've moved to Boolean when you do that.
Right.
So there's two reasons. That's one, and the other one just is very few people at that time, because the most common thing is quotes, right, used advanced search. So this is how people search, whether we like it or not. So they need to know something about what's going on when that happens. So that's why I didn't use advanced search. It is Boolean searching.
So the Boolean advanced searching does allow you to moderate the algorithm?
No.
Not really.
No. And we don't know that's the secret sauce, right? We don't know I think you just have to say, when you search in Westlaw or Lexis, they are boosting your Boolean results with the key number or classific topic system and the content that are in their databases. That's just what they're doing. What's your name, by the way?
Tim.
Tim.
Yeah.
Another question.
Right. Well, that's a question. I think you sort of picked up on the core things that differentiate at least West and Lexis from case text and Ravel for sure, and certainly from Basket a little bit. And as they basically have sort of three core advantages. One, they got huge user history. Among high-end litigators who have been spending lots of money litigating, they've done a sort of very focused search. They have an idea what their search results. And that's the second item is they have all the secondary materials, whether it's treaties, but also the briefs.
Yeah.
So this is one of the things that case text is trying to do right now. They're trying to get the briefs of sort of the larger law firms just to sort of find the related cases within the briefs. And that's a huge advantage. And West and Lexis have a lot, and Bloomberg has a lot of that as well. And the third part, which I wouldn't, undercut it all because I think it's big, because it can't be done any other way, really, to get done right, is the editorial work they do on shepherdization or key site. You can pretend you're going to put an algorithm on that, but at some point you're going to have to put some real people on it.
So that's what everyone that I've talked to, and I've talked to a number of engineers. I actually get emails from engineers saying, read your paper, really would like to talk to you. And I'm not an engineer, right? I'm just like messing with this stuff because it's fun. Is that at some point humans come into it. Yeah. They just do. And but the advantage that it gives is sort of point of view based.
But all those three are human interactions really by the users or by people providing info. So the usage, that's really people doing it. They're using the history, writing the briefs and things like that, and the actual editorial support.
Can anyone hear this, by the way?
That's sort of outside of the computer programmer writing the algorithm. They just have more data they can work with, which has been provided by folks. And you might say a litigator at Skadden and Arps is worth more than a litigator doing a personal injury case in Santa Clara County. And that's fine, depending on what's being researched.
Exactly.
And you might try to give weights to it. But that's a huge amount of individual editorial work that's been done in these data sets. And if they would provide those data sets to everybody, which West will never do.
No. Good luck. Algorithmic accountability is bad enough.
You can compete with them on the engineering.
And you can see that the thing that I'm asking for is actually relatively general. Right? It's about weight and emphasis and what's really going on. And no one from any of these companies has come to me and said, you know what, you're really full of it. Which is kind of what I was waiting for. So, I mean, it clearly makes a difference. But the two amazing things to me about this were that the results really are so unique in the top 10, right? I mean, that's amazing. And that this kind of thinking that I came to about the worldview, the point of view of these databases, I think being unmoored from the Langdellian view of the world may not be a bad thing in some cases. Just depends on what you're doing, right? Any other questions back there? I see one. I see two.
Yes, just very quickly. You talked a little bit about the trend of kind of we started off as more pure Boolean and moved to keyword, and noticed in the past, year or so, as Westlaw and Lexis try to outdo one another in simplifying searches, we've moved to having, we start typing in Westlaw, it'll give you a drop down like Google wants to do, and but that's wonderful for maybe getting people started, but more often than not, it seems like that's derailing folks. And I've had students before looking for South Carolina statutes, and when they wonder why they're not seeing what I'm seeing, I'll go over and look. In the drop down, there's South Dakota.
And they clicked on that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, user error, and also it's just the availability, right? It's just the availability bias, like the drop down comes in and boom, you see something that looks like it might be relevant, and you stop thinking about what it is that you wanted and start thinking about what it is that's being offered to you. And that's why one of the things I try and tell my students is look at what's being pushed at you, right? In the F of the screen that you're looking at, what's up there across the top and down the left side, what's being forced in your direction. Is that really what you want? Not always.
Right.
They chose that, not you. So it's a lot about, taking command of it, because legal research should really be a very creative and not mechanical process, in my opinion. Mike, you had a question.
So I came back a little bit late, so you may have answered this already. I was just curious whether you thought about applying this to the visualization tools that some of the services offer so fast.
Yes, so I did do in my paper that I wrote, I did for one search, I actually looked at the secondary sources that were provided by each database provider in terms of citation analysis or network analysis, and did that help? Did it get you any further down the line? And I actually am planning on doing sort of a full bore search on that, where I take slightly more robust legal problems and take them through the process instead of just focusing on this one part of the process. So I did a one-off. But to do it for all 50 searches, no. I couldn't do it for this. I mean, this was bad enough. All right, any more questions? Thank you all very much. Well, it's just I did some things that had to do specifically with the theme of the event and rhythm. So it'll be safe. Yeah. Right. Thank you. So I focused on and I love that. More back going, I kind of
A lot of people will be like,
Yeah. Yes, you can.
now you all want to hear about blockchain. Yeah. And you know, so yeah, because it's some point you're like, well, yeah.
All of us, I don't need to get my